Apparently, there's like news that martial law is going to be instituted on April 20th. Not for nothing, but that's Hitler's birthday. I mean, I'm just, I'm sure there are other reasons why that's the potential date. I'm just throwing it out there. Anyway, there's this article by this guy named Jim Stewartson, March 7th. I want to give it a read here. In this deeply alarming opinion piece in the San Francisco Chronicle, Brett Wagner, who served as a professor of national security decision-making for the U.S. Naval War College, raises the specter of Trump invoking the Insurrection Act and martial law. In his day one fusillade of executive orders, Donald Trump signed declaring a national emergency at the southern border of the United States. This is how dictators have always done it. Always throughout history, they are given emergency powers. Like leaders have the ability to declare emergency powers. For Hitler, it was the Enabling Act, where he can basically legislate with the stroke of his pen. He can write new laws and codify them on the spot. They don't have to go through Congress. They don't have to be, referendum vote or any of that. He just writes it, and it's now a law. Executive orders were never intended to be that, because that's a lot of power to place in someone's hands. The only reason that even existed, the Enabling Act, in the first place for Hitler is because Weimar Germany, the government that existed before Hitler destroyed it, when it was created, they saw a civil war brewing under the surface, and they wanted a president to be able to come in and kind of deal with this civil war if need be, with an iron fist, if you will. Well, Hitler took control. He established his emergency powers, and he now can pretty much do whatever he wants with zero repercussions. Every time anybody in the world uses emergency powers, there's an uproar. Justin Trudeau used emergency powers to deal with the results of like a trucker protest and a hurricane, I think. And everybody's like, he's not going to give up those emergency powers. Of course he did. That's ridiculous. But people freak out when that happens, including MAGA. Well, Trump is using emergency powers right now with the alien... What is it? The Alien Enemies Act, the one that Trump used. It's a wartime power, an emergency power reserved only for wartime use that Trump implemented anyway. So this guy says Trump is going to use wartime powers, emergency powers, to expand his power on April 20th. By the way, the algorithm is hitting me hard right now, completely ignoring me. So I'd appreciate if you watch to the end of the video. Having increased watch time as a percentage and a raw number is what pushes the video further. Also check out my books, owenmorgan.com. All right, back to the video. In his day one fusillade of executive orders, Trump signed the declaring national emergency at the southern border of the U.S. That's the national emergency pretext. This includes the following clause dictating that Trump's designated supplicants, Kristi Noem at DHS, and abusive crusader Pete Hegseth submit a report with recommendations about whether to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807. Within 90 days of the date of this proclamation, the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Homeland Security shall submit a joint report to the President about the conditions at the southern border of the United States and any recommendations regarding additional actions that may be necessary to obtain complete operational control of the southern border, including whether to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807. Okay, so the Insurrection Act is martial law, effectively. If he did that, it would be pretty much abolishing all laws or putting them on pause and taking full control as a dictator, something that no president has done, certainly not in this context ever, and that no president should ever do. And arguably, this power shouldn't even exist in a democracy. And if you notice, it says within 90 days of the date of the proclamation. April 20th is the last day of those 90 days. So Trump is probably waiting to see how the first 90 days of his administration go, and depending on how he feels, he might just implement it. On Wednesday, and I can't believe I'm saying this with a straight face, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard made a big show of landing at the border of Mexico, which is a pretty remarkable thing all by itself. Why would people in charge of our national defense be meeting there? Yeah, so they're all getting off the plane here. They filmed it and everything. Interesting. The plan, as I've reported now for months, is to create a North American empire from Greenland to Colombia. Trump's tariffs and horrific abuse of America's neighbors, the belittling of Trudeau, the saber rattling at Mexico, Greenland, and Panama, are all pretext. I recently wrote about the plan to carve up the world, an agreement between different groups. Putin, the PayPal mafia, which is like Peter Thiel, famous Nazi billionaire that funds all kinds of right-wing extremism. And theocratic anti-communists to create a multipolar world free of the burden of liberal democracy. Trump has effectively decapitated the military leadership, including replacing the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, a 4-star general who is black, with a 3-star MAGA TV personality with the nickname Raisin Cane. Trump fired all the JAGs, the people responsible for ensuring that the military stays within the law, and has Hegseth running around doing things like canceling the plane that dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima because it's called the Enola Gay. Yeah, I remember that. Basically removed anything in archives anywhere in the Department of Defense with the word gay. And that happened to be the plane that dropped the atomic bomb anyway. As Mike Flynn pointed out on 12/17/2020, martial law is a tactic well within their consideration. The Insurrection Act was repeatedly invoked in the lead up to January 6th as a potential way to prevent the peaceful transition of power. Oh, I remember that, yeah. Trump's lawyers got in the way last time because they feared the incoming administration. This time, they will have no reason to fear at all. To get a sense of how far afield we are, here's a federal judge, Beryl Howell, explaining why the very basics of the Constitution, as if to a recalcitrant second grader, to Donald Trump after he illegally fired the head of the National Labor Relations Board. Yeah, he can't fire the head of a union. Like, what? The judge says he fundamentally misapprehends the role under Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution. In our constitutional order, the president is tasked to be a conscientious custodian of the law. I note that 3 months after 1/20/25, when the executive order to determine whether to invoke the Insurrection Act was signed, is 4/20/25. 420 is, as noted in an SEC filing, a part of marijuana culture and a favorite meme of Elon Musk. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of examples of this. Yeah, and also it's Hitler's birthday. Again, like, it's too on the nose. It's too ridiculous. As a sign of the potential actions of the Trump regime, given both its ferocity on one hand and its increasing ineffectiveness on the other, here's the chief proponent of American National Socialism, aka the Dark Enlightenment, Curtis Yarvin, yesterday, practically begging for new and unprecedented abuses of the Richter scale, or the Trump regime will start to wither and eventually dissipate. Curtis Yarvin is his own little subset of bizarre, but we don't need to get into that today. If anyone thinks the regime would not consider invoking the martial law on Hitler's birthday, you've really got to reframe your thinking. The Nazis snuck in the back door and took over. We either squeeze them out or die regretting we didn't. Musk's Tesla stock is tanking. His rockets are exploding on a regular basis. He's deeply unpopular, but this will only make him more desperate, more messianic, and more prone to creating spectacular earthquakes. Head on a swivel, friends. In the meantime, enjoy the fireworks.
I just saw that starship blew up. There it is.
That's the article. Is he going to declare martial law on April 20th? I'll tell you this, to my knowledge, Tesla's earnings report for the year releases April 22nd, and their stock is going to tank hard, as far as I know, when that earnings report comes out. It's going to be a complete mess. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comments. That is some deeply disturbing right there. But we got to face it head on, guys. I'm telling you, it's now time to start hiding people in your basement if you have the ability. Hide people in your spare bedroom. Hide people in your fucking bedroom under your bed if that's what it takes, for real. Because they're coming for people right now, immigrants at this moment, and people that protest in favor of Palestine, whether they're immigrants or legal, documented or undocumented or what, it doesn't matter. Anyway, tell me what you think in the comments.